Pulled up to this client's house, and we had a message that this person is looking to have their ash tree possibly treated. It's not looking very good, and just kind of wants to know how the tree is doing. Well, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I've had several calls like this today already regarding people's ash trees, and oftentimes the tree is already dead, and that is the case with the one I'm looking at right now. I was actually able, when I pulled up my truck into the driveway, I was able to tell right away that this tree is not doing so good. So this is definitely going to be a removal. And let's go take a look at this ash tree and see what happened. Well, the first thing is I'm pretty new to the world of arbor care, so I'm learning a lot right now. And this tree is a deciduous tree, so that means it drops its leaves in the wintertime. And at first, I was only able to identify trees by their leaves. But now that it's winter, I found that it's really important to be able to identify these trees different ways, such as their bark. So by looking at the bark, I can tell that the tree is an ash tree. And there's something that I notice on the bark right away. Let's take a look. So from my vehicle, I noticed blonde spots on the bark, and as I get a little closer and look a little with a little more detail, I can notice little tiny itty bitty holes, like pencil-shaped holes, where those blonde spots are. And what that actually is that's a woodpecker, most likely a woodpecker, that's peeling off the bark. So that's why it's blonde, and then pecking into the tree to get at the larvae of the emerald ash borer. So unfortunately, this tree was taken by the emerald ash borer, and we're going to remove it.
Okay, good morning. I'm Kevin Hamm, owner of Hamm's Arbor Care, and we're here this morning looking at that ash tree Justin just talked about. And yes, it's not officially dead, but it's well on its way. We've got the woodpecker damage well down into the lower canopy, and so this tree has never been treated, and it's certainly not worth treating now. And so we're going to take it down, and actually we've got space here. We could fell the entire tree, and that might be something we would choose to do. But today I'm going to do a couple of demonstrations just to show some drop cuts, different things that we do that we might employ when taking down a tree. And with ash trees, you have to remember, if this was any worse, it'd be pretty hazardous to climb. This isn't a very tall tree by any means, and so there's lots of things I can do climbing on this tree that will be well within the realm of safety. But ash trees can be dry. It's a drier wood anyways, but when it's declining from ash borer, it's even more dry, and so the hinging can be sketchy. Hinges can break. If you have side weight, the tree can go in a direction you didn't want it to go. Even though your notch was great, everything was great, the hinge might break. It's the wood is unpredictable. And so when we have a standing tree like this, and we could fall the whole thing, we will likely, disarm it and make everything absolutely in our favor to make it go exactly where we want it to do. And there's some easy pickings here that we can take some back weight off and some side weight off and just get a nice pull. And then we'll probably put a rope in the tree to pull it over. And so we're going to do some demonstrations today to show that. And I'm kind of here by myself. Ordinarily we have a crew. I got Justin here filming. But just a little talk on safety. In our industry, everybody always says never work alone, which is a good thing because if you hurt yourself when you're alone, you just might die right there. And so that's a pretty serious consequence. But I never want people to get lulled to sleep thinking that working with a crew is safer than working alone. We're all fallible human beings. With every one of us that's added to a crew, the risk actually increases on a logarithmic scale. The little equation is R times R minus 1. And so if there's 2 of us on the site, that's 2 times 1. There's 2 ways for us really to get hurt. Me hurt him, him hurt me. If there's 3, it's 3 times 2. Now there's 6 relationships in order to be hurt. If you add another guy, 4 times 3 is 12. Now you get 12 different relationships that could result in an injury. And if you add a 5th guy, you got a 5-man crew running around, you have 20 different ways in which somebody could get hurt. You're not safer with a crew. Just keep that in mind. Your awareness has to increase with the number of people you have on the site, because somebody could walk under me, as a climber, and you just have to be more aware the more of us fallible human beings are on site. So we're going to show some different ways to safely piece down some of these limbs that are on this tree, and hopefully it'll provide some value for you. Thanks. All right, so I'm all suited up, ready to go up the tree. I'm gonna bring a tagline along just to put it in the tree. Ordinarily, when we're felling a tree, we usually have a tagline in the tree to pull, pull line. Loggers, I know, like to fell the tree and stay at the stump and guide it with the saw. We don't do that. We put everything in our favor when we're around houses. So what I'm going to do here is demonstrate some drop cuts. There's different things that you can do with branches. We've got different trees over here we want to preserve. We got a Norway maple over here that we have some branches in. We can make a drop cut on this where the butt will drop straight down and it'll kind of ride those branches down. We're not going to create a bunch of issue on the tree. Same with the spruces. We got a lot of understory deadwood on the spruces from the shade. But we've got a large branch we can drop off on that side, and it can kind of just ride the spruces down, and it won't be a big deal. And then we're going to drop some stuff off the front here, and we'll maybe open up some notches and show you what happens when the butt drops last and the tips tip over. You can end up having a butt of a branch go way far away from where you want it to go if the tips hit first. If you're a little higher in the tree and the branch tips all the way down and the tips hit, it can bounce 30 feet and run into that house there or something like that. So how you make your notch will determine how the branch falls, and so we'll demonstrate a few of those things. All right, this is the Akimbo. I really like it ever since I got it. It's an adjustable friction tool. It goes on the rope pretty easily, and you can this is an 11.8 millimeter line from All Gear, Mardi Gras line I think it's called, and that works well for me. I'm over 250 pounds all geared up, so a smaller line I tend to slide in this even with it adjusted all the way down. So I've got my adjustments right here. And it works well for me. And so I'm going to go up and do some of these cuts. So I make it completely perpendicular to the ground, not in line with the branch, because I want this to drop straight down. And I'm going to cut the top cut directly on top of that bottom cut. And so that sat down into the kerf of my bottom cut and then dropped directly to the ground, and it landed flat. And on this one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'll probably, to keep it away from my foot, I'm going to cut the drop cut up here, and then I can cut the stub off later. because obviously if anything goes wrong and this touches those branches over there, it might come back and hit my leg. And my son actually had that happen. It moved his left patella out of place. That led to a few weeks of recovery. So you want to be careful about where the butt is and where your body parts are. So you can keep your foot out of the way, but I can also choose where I make the cut to ensure that I'm not going to get hit. So in that scenario, we were able to drop cut the branch and it rode the branches down, and I didn't break any of the little branches on that maple tree. So we were able to get a big branch out of the way, not damage the other trees around, and now it's on the ground where they can easily take care of it. On this branch, I'm going to demonstrate what happens if you make a notch. Now here we want to make a straight drop cut so it falls straight down. I'm going to make a notch so the tips come down first, and then the butt's going to either fall against the tree or fall beyond the tree, and you can just see how, you know, the butt moves to a different location if the tips hit first. So we'll just make that demonstration. So if I'd have made a drop cut, that would have been safely on the ground. But because I made a notch, now I've got a hung limb. And so I've created a hazard, potentially, because of how I cut the limb. So now I'll free that and get that on the ground. Notice too, now I cut the hinge so it would fall this way and the butt would be having a tendency to go away from me. But if you were to cut that notch to angle maybe more to the right, that butt might actually come back and strike my leg. And so you want to be aware of what kind of cut you're making and how that might impact you in a regard to safety. All right, we got one more limb I want to take off to remove some back weight. It kind of orientates towards the house, so I want to notch it at an angle away from the house, but I don't want to hit this tree. So I'm going to make a fairly narrow notch so that it falls a little bit but then drops, because I don't want it to keep going and have the butt go in a way different direction. So we're going to see how this works. So on that last drop cut, we made a narrow notch, and so the branch fell into that notch away from the house, but then the notch closed, and I stayed on the cut when it closed so that the hinge would break and the branch would break free. It did tag that one branch on the tree, which I thought it might, but it was already free from the tree, so the piece was able to just roll off of that tree and fall harmlessly to the ground without damaging that tree. If the hinge would have been stayed on, if I would have made a more open-faced notch, the hinge would have still been intact. It would have fallen into that tree. Now I would have had a hung limb, and I've got a problem to solve. And so, you know, I chose a particular notch for a particular situation so that, you know, it becomes more predictable on what's going to happen. So principles are, or methods are many, principles are few. Methods often change, principles never do. So the principles of notching and back cuts are pretty sound, but how you apply them methodically may change in any given different situation.